Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CoinDrop Podcast, episode number 73. And tonight, I am joined by no one. That's right, you're getting a solo show tonight, so I do apologize for the solo show. But Tim had an urgent matter come up. He had to make a very long drive, very late at night. So, Tim, drive safe, buddy. By the time you hear this, hopefully you're home safe. With that said, tonight I'm going to talk about a couple of things. There's not a ton of news going on right now. Actually kind of scraped the bottom of the barrel for some of this stuff. But right at the top, I'm going to go ahead and plug our Patreon at patreon.com/CoinDropPod. Did not forget to plug the URL this time, so that's great. Over there tonight, we're going to be talking about the FCC doing a bit of investigations into ISPs and what that could mean for internet consumers. Could be good, could be bad. We'll find out over there. A new bit of tech that's coming out next year that is perfect for the retro player, and Naughty Dog's next game. Some more information's out about that, as well as a highly anticipated game that was delayed, getting delayed again. If you want to find out more about those topics, you will have to head over to Patreon to hear them. Otherwise, I guess you miss out. That said, let's jump into a bit of an update. So last week, for those of you who listen or watched, however you enjoyed the content, thank you. We talked about Throne and Liberty. We had Chris on, and he kind of gave us his opinions. And Tim and I both kind of said the same thing. Well, we kind of want to play this game. And on that note, I do want to apologize. We did not actually get to do that post-podcast party stream last week. The wife and I ended up watching Clarkson's Farm and falling asleep, basically, is ultimately what happened. So that's on me. We didn't actually stream it, but I have played it since then, and I have also uninstalled it since then. So we're going to start with Throne and Liberty, and we'll get to why Once Human is on here as well. So Chris told us, he is too shiny. There were some other issues he called out, but like too shiny, this and that. And I kind of have to agree with him. There's a level of grit that's just missing from this game that's very off-putting. In the opening cutscene of the game, there's an old man that you see in this CGI cutscene that actually looks old. Well, when you see him in-game afterwards, he looks like he's maybe 10 years older than me. There's no wrinkles, there's no age to him at all. It's very strange. But beyond that, there's a lot of other issues I have with the game. Most of them are minor. It's just ultimately not for me. The combat, I don't necessarily agree with Chris on. As a big fan of tab-based targeting, I think the combat felt fine. The problem I had with it was, in fact, the global cooldowns, because once you blow your skills, you sit there and do nothing until your skills come back up. And it feels like what they've done is make a worse Final Fantasy XIV. So if anybody out there plays Throne and Liberty and has never played Final Fantasy XIV, you'd probably like Final Fantasy XIV a hell of a lot more than Throne and Liberty. One, the combat is better. You have active skills that you can chain into combos in Final Fantasy XIV. In this one, you just kind of have them, and you do them, and then you wait for them to cool down. And it's fine, I guess, but it feels old in a bad way, not old as a nostalgic way. So that's something that I think should be addressed. And all of these things can be addressed as the game goes on. But the question is, will they? Will they change anything at all? Who knows? So combat, hit or miss, right? I basically just played sword and board. I got up to level 10. Didn't get too far into it, but combat was okay, I'll say. Character customization is pretty on point, in my opinion. You can't affect the fields of change as much as, say, other games, because they're going for a certain aesthetic with the characters, which is overly youthful, but you do have a lot of options to change. In fact, the image uploader, I used that to try and make a character that looked like me, and it got relatively close. I got the skin color a little bit dark, but it got kind of, for being one of the few games that allows you to import a picture to make it as your character, it's definitely not bad. It's a good starting point, I guess is a way to say that. Overall, the experience was lackluster. The story is virtually non-existent. I don't really have a way to describe Throne and Liberty. Basically, you're this star child, you've got a star fragment, and people are after you. But they're also after these other two girls who they're in hiding, but you're not. It's a really weird, like, it seems like what they've done is make a collection of stories and put them together. There's 10 chapters overall throughout the whole game, which is way too little for an MMO in my opinion. The file size for this game is less than 70 gigs. That right there is a problem. That tells you how small this game is. And what's more, when talking to Chris later on, he explained to me that within the time of early access, people had already gotten to max level and were doing in-game raids. And it gets worse than that. We'll go over that in a little bit, but it only has gotten worse since then. So it's a very small game. It's too pretty. And I agree with Chris. It's just too, not like graphically, oh my God, this is gorgeous, but everything is shiny and new and clean, and it just doesn't feel right. The aesthetic doesn't feel right, in my opinion. It's not what I look for in a fantasy game. It feels very much like it's trying to compete with Black Desert Online and Final Fantasy XIV, but it's missing the grit that Final Fantasy XIV really picked up from Heavensward and onward, at least into Stormblood, because that's as far as that game I've ever got into and probably will never get past. But it has potential. I don't think it's worth the investment to get it there, though, which is very disappointing because technically, second-handedly, a big fan of NCSoft, since they also own ArenaNet, who is the people that made Guild Wars. Fantastic games. Fantastic games. Incredible story in Guild Wars, and for Throne and Liberty to really just drop the ball on everything in a sense that there's nothing that makes it unique and stand out, right? It took the combat system from early EverQuest. It took the changing weapons style, determining your class, so to speak, from Final Fantasy XIV and did it worse, or did it from New World, compare how you will. And I think the biggest sin that this game commits is something that blew my mind when I found out. On average, getting XP from a monster, you're going to get anywhere between 40 to 70 XP from that kill. Well, harvesting literally anything will range you 147 to 173 per node harvested, which is so much more experience from literally so less work that it almost made me go, this has to be a glitch. This can't be a feature. This can't be a thing. I mined 7 levels in that game in less than an hour, just collected materials and got 7 levels in less than an hour. That is just so unacceptable for an MMO. It's not even funny. The rush to in-game in MMOs now is so disgusting and disappointing that you're literally killing the game. You're destroying. I got to level 10 in 3 hours. The max level is 50, and unless there's a serious XP valley there at some point, which most MMOs do have, I'll give you that, but unless there's a serious valley there, what the fuck, dude? The game is less than 70 gigs. It's tiny by comparison to other MMOs, and sure, it's early access, and it just came out. No, it's not early access, excuse me. It's 1.0. It's so un-okay. I sat there, I played it, I got through the first 2 chapters of the game, and I was like, do I really care about this game at all? Do I care about the events going on in this world? Do I care about the narrative they're selling? Do I care about the combat they're providing? Do I care about the crafting? First of all, too many systems in this game. The crafting is trash, literal trash. You literally just collect the materials and build it in your inventory. That is unacceptable for an MMO. That is even EverQuest didn't do that when it launched. Like, EverQuest had crafting, you had to go to a workbench and do, like, it's so bare bones in so many areas that it doesn't make sense. Then you've got skill books to level up your active skills and your passive skills. On top of that, you get new skills. I think there's a cap of 8 per weapon set, so to speak. You can upgrade your weapon, but you can also get new weapons that are inherently better than the weapons you've wasted upgrades on, and everything is percentage based. So it's like, oh yeah, you have a X percentage chance of getting a full level off of one of these, or you have. I hate it. I hate your skills should level with your character. Period. This idea of leveling up skills, it feels predatory. You're literally making me grind for materials to upgrade the skills because they won't scale with my level. So now I'm grinding levels, and I'm grinding levels for my active and passive skills. The only thing this game did right in leveling is giving you actual stat points to plug into your character, in my opinion. That is something that is sorely lacking from MMOs and RPGs in general. We have been railroaded into not having stat points for so long now that it's very nice to see that Throne and Liberty actually gave us the ability to choose where our stat priorities go. That was nice. That's about the best I can say for the game. It's really pretty. Some of it in a good way, some of it in a bad way. But honestly, I don't think, even as a free MMO, I don't think this is a good game. Just my opinion. Chris obviously shares the same opinion. And probably a lot of other people do. I guess on Steam, it's sitting at a mixed review, so it's not doing great. However, that said, NCSoft isn't walking away from this game. They have intentions to make it better, and it's clear because they're addressing the true cancer of any MMO, of all MMOs, bots, and they're addressing it aggressively. I haven't seen a company this aggressive on botting since Square Enix addressing bots for Final Fantasy XIV and guild sellers on Final Fantasy XIV. They cracked down hard on that shit, and I gotta give it to NCSoft. They seem to be cracking down pretty hard on botters. There was a recent tweet that went out from them about 3 days ago now, where it said, today, quote, this is direct from their tweet, quote, today we enact a set of bans against accounts suspected of operating bots within Throne and Liberty. We will continue to monitor activities and take actions against any bad actors intent on negatively impacting the experience of our players. Maintaining a fair and equal playing environment for all players is our top priority. We appreciate your understanding and support as we work to uphold the integrity of our games. Here's the only issue with this. Maintaining a fair and equal, remember that word, playing environment for all of our players is our top priority. Well, if that were true, you would not have allowed this game to launch in early access to people who gave you more money and then make the game so fucking simple that they were able to get to max level in less than 2 days. And now, on PvP worlds in Throne and Liberty, they are having serious griefing issues. Currently, PvP content is dominated by these people who are just capped out on everything. They're inflicting misery on everyone else. They're bogarting dungeons and world bosses, and guild wars are just being completely one-sided because you've got this group of people that started the game a week early, and they're so much further than anybody else. It's not equal. And I don't care, right? Like, here's the bottom line. Personally, if you've got the expendable income to buy yourself the nicety of early access, and that's something you want, 100% your deal. Go for it. Whatever. I've got no qualm with it, because the reality is, and I got to give it to Viva La Dirt League for this, because honestly, this is what changed my perspective. They make a lot of very funny shorts, but one of them, they specifically do, guy buys a bunch of cosmetic items in the MMO he's playing as, and the girl with him gets all pissed off at him, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, like I spend 40 hours a week grinding away at a job so I can earn the perk of extra income so that I might be able to spend a little bit of extra money rather than the limited time I have. It's a really great short. He basically goes off on like why microtransactions and people that pay for them kind of have a leg to stand on. And at the end of the day, as long as they're cosmetic, who cares? In this case, this isn't necessarily a cosmetic thing that they bought into, but it is an MMO, and there are plenty of them right now you can buy into early access on. If you've got $150, Ashes of Creation, you can get into it right now. If you've got, I don't know, a bunch of different tier options. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is buyable in right now. Star Citizen is buyable in right now. So like, this isn't unique to Throne and Liberty. What is unique to Throne and Liberty is they did it so close to launch and then didn't wipe the servers. Now, I don't know if those other games are going to do that, where they're going to just wipe everybody and everybody starts from zero again. Personally, I think that's the best way to do it. Just my opinion. It allows you to get in the game, learn the systems, learn the mechanics, and then go from there. and start fresh on release date. Just my opinion. Throne and Liberty and NCSoft obviously went a different direction. At the end of the day, I'm just flat out disappointed in what Throne and Liberty is. I think they had a potential to do something really cool, and they just missed the mark. The story legitimately doesn't feel like it was a focal point at all. It felt very, hey, throw this in, is kind of the impression I got. And that's disappointing. I play RPGs for the RPG. I play MMOs, not necessarily for the story, but a good story will continue to drive you through the content. It will. That's what that does. That's why games like Final Fantasy XIV do so well. They put the RPG before the MMO, and it makes that game fantastic. I know I'll probably never beat that game. I am so far behind, it's just not worth the time investment to get there with so many other games. But I know the story's phenomenal because what I've played up until now in Stormblood is amazing. And they make it center. And not all MMOs need to do that. EverQuest didn't do that. EverQuest, you had to hunt the story. Ragnarok Online, also an ancient MMO, didn't put the story forefront. You had to hunt for it. And when you found it, it was good. But the gameplay and the groundbreakingness, I suppose, of those games is what made them good. And Throne and Liberty just doesn't have anything that makes it unique. Maybe the traversal system, but at the end of the day, what's wrong with the fucking mount, man? Why do I need to turn into a wolf to run? It just seems like... and also the bird, the flying thing, the flying aspect of the game is absolute ass. It is 100% ass. Does not work at all. It's ass, and you won't convince me otherwise. Just mounts, man. Just be normal. That's the one place where you should have been normal, and you weren't normal. It's such a weird choice. I don't get it. But we'll see how that game progresses. I don't have a lot of hope for Throne and Liberty. I don't think it's an MMO with any kind of staying power. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. Now, Once Human. This is another game that is also free to play. It's also an MMO, but this one is a survival MMO. This is the game I had hoped the day before would be. It is a story-based survival game, because I've said it for years now, and I'm looking forward to Dune for this reason. Survival games have been sorely lacking a linear story, something that ties the continuity together. There's lore abundant in Conan Exiles and Ark and Russ. There's lore everywhere. I want a real story. I want a narrative for these games. And Once Human promised that. And they delivered it. It's not as good as you think. So the story is decent. It's interesting. But it's almost exactly opposite the issue of Throne and Liberty. The story in Once Human is interesting. The gameplay is really boring, like just mind-numbingly boring. I couldn't. It still plays like a survival game. You build your base and all this, and you run around, and there's quests, but they're like there's hubs, there's areas, and the areas all want you to do the same thing. It's fucking find the rift anchor, activate the rift anchor, find a couple of caches, find a mystic box thing, right? And again, this is a free-to-play game, so of course they've got to have a monetizing scheme. So how do you monetize? Well, microtransactions, right? Again, whatever. I just talked about this. Cosmetics, fine. Who fucking care? Whatever. Okay. They do cosmetics. What I don't like is their gear is also blueprints most of the time. You can find gear in the game, but a lot of what you find is fractions of blueprints. So you have to get lucky in opening these chests to open up fractional blueprints and then get enough of those blueprints that you can actually craft the blueprint so that you can actually craft the gear. Then half the materials you need to make that gear, you can't gather. You have to gather scrap by running around and just picking shit up off the ground, literal trash, and then salvaging it to break it down to the raw materials to build it back to what you want. It sounds good, but god damn it, is it boring. It's so boring. It's mind-numbing. Then the combat should be great, should be engaging. You're using guns, you're fighting these like Divergence, I believe is what they call them. They're like mutated humans and mutated all this and that, and it's such a cool like body horror, eldritch horror kind of setting, and it just isn't. It's so boring. The enemies don't move. They don't really like, they move. They don't attack. You never get surrounded. Like it doesn't feel scary. It doesn't feel like there's any threat of danger at all. Even when fighting enemies that were like five levels above me, it didn't feel. Yeah, it didn't feel. I got through kind of the beginning story arc. The base building is very jank. This game, however, is in early access, so it gets a bit of a pass on these things. It gets a pass on the very janky building aspects. It does have some cool stuff with its building aspects. It has the ability to save something you've built as a blueprint. So once you've built it, if you go somewhere else to build a new base and you want to build the same base or just want to have a base quick, boom, you got your base. Kind of a nice feature. It tells you exactly how many materials you need to make that blueprint. That's actually really nice. I give them props on that because base building is often a very long, drawn out process. And in fact, most of the gameplay I spent was base building. The rest of it was killing monsters and animals and looting and scavenging and looting. It just, maybe the PvP section of the game is better. Maybe having that threat of other players killing you is better, but then it's just Rust, right? You're just playing Rust at that point. It's just Rust with extra steps. So Once Human, I have more hope for than Throne and Liberty because Once a Human is in early access. Throne and Liberty is 1.0. Both of these games are not MMOs I expect to have any staying power at all. Again, like I said, I think they're niche games. I don't think they'll last very long. I think most people will play them a little while and then get bored of it and move on to something else. And it has me really, really concerned for Dune. I hope Dune does this better. I believe they will because Conan Exiles honestly was a really solid game. It just really needed a story. So I have hope that Dune will be what we need, what we want out of the survival franchise. The story for Once Human is basically you were once human. There's the title for you. You're a person that's experimented on by at the Monolith Company, I think it was called. I don't remember. It's some vaguely government agency, and they do experiments on people and trying to blend divergent DNA or deviant DNA with human DNA, and you end up being one of these things that gets awakened and blah blah blah. Then you're fighting them and they call you the Mayflies because Mayflies can survive anything. It's a really weird narrative, but I will say this: the voice acting in Once Human is significantly better than Throne and Liberty. Throne and Liberty has some absolute garbage voice acting, and it's woof. It's woof. It's real woof. Once Human at least had some decent voice actors, but the core of the gameplay is boring. It doesn't feel. I don't know. It doesn't feel grounded and real. I don't know how to put this into words. So give me a second while I think about it. So it feels like it wants to play like PUBG. It feels like it wants to be realistic and grounded in that sense, but the bullet grouping makes it literally a hose. You've got a bullet hose. I was using an AK from roughly 50 yards away shooting at a guy, and every single one of my bullets, no recoil at all, just every single one of them on target every time, all the time. It's arcadey is the best way I can say it. And it feels like it shouldn't be because making it that easy to kill stuff, it's kind of boring, honestly. It's got good bones, but that's about all I think it has going for it. It doesn't really grab me with the horror aspect or anything like that. The story is decent, but is lacking the suspense horror of being overwhelmed and being caught off guard. And yeah, I got a couple hours into it and it just uninstalled it too. So, but speaking of games that'll grab you and terrify you and scare the shit out of you, the team behind Silent Hill 2 Remake has announced a game that they had previously said they canceled is coming out. This is Chronos New Dawn. This was originally called Project C, was supposedly canceled last year, and I guess they didn't because, well, here we go. This is their trailer on screen right now. For our audio listeners, I'll explain what this game is to you while our video is rolling here. So, New Dawn, Chronos New Dawn, is a third-person survival horror game that throws you into the heart of a deadly struggle against overwhelming foes and uncovering mysteries of twisted time story. So it's a time manipulation game, which already has me interested. On top of that, like I said, the team behind Silent Hill 2. So I am 100% interested on that alone. Chronos, you travel through time, technically back. You're a traveler, and you are going through the world after this event called The Change, which is a catastrophe that forever altered humanity and basically turned the world into a living nightmare. Think Dead Space meets Silent Hill is the best way I can describe kind of what we're seeing on screen here and what's been shown of the monsters you're going to be fighting. It looks nightmarish as all hell. You are going through, I guess it's Poland area, and Eastern European brutalism meets future retro technology kind of stuff. And you're looking for rifts in time, so to speak, that you can travel back to the 1980s in Poland, which is right when the change is happening. So you're not even driving back to the beginning or to before the change. You're going to when it's happening, which is awesome because I love post-apocalypse stuff, but I love active apocalypse stuff even more. I like being in the thick of the shit when it's happening, and it sounds like that's what this game is going to deliver. What it seems like the goal here is you're traveling back in time to harvest the souls of important people at the time that might be able to solve the issues of the future. So you're literally killing them by ripping their soul out of their bodies so you can travel back to the future, not in a DeLorean and not going 88 miles an hour, back to the future so that they can hopefully somehow aid in what's left of humanity restoring the situation. It's a wild concept. I love it. And it looks like it looks amazing. I cannot talk this game up enough. It is a sci-fi horror shooter. You got to be careful with survival elements in there as well. If you like Silent Hill, if you like Resident Evil, if you like sci-fi, you know what? If you like Control and Alan Wake, these might kind of scratch that niche too. There's a lot going on in this game. I urge you all to check it out. It'll be on Steam as well as PlayStation. I believe Xbox as well, but don't quote me on that. No current planned release date, just a 2025 release time frame. It gives me like Silent Hill meets Dead Space meets Resident Evil vibes, and I love it. It's so gripping that I cannot wait to get my hands on this game and play it. I'm hoping a demo comes out sometime next year before the game does, because that'd be great. It looks really cool. Check it out. That being said, let's talk about kind of a controversial topic. So we've touched on Dragon Age Veilguard here a lot. Is a franchise it's near and dear to my heart. I promise we're not going to harp on the game again and again and again. This is probably going to be the final nail for me with Dragon Age the Veilguard. So since this game was announced, BioWare has said some stuff that has been really enticing. They've said all of the quests are hand touch, all of the interactions are handmade, the areas are hand built. Nothing in AI has really messed with this game at all. It's going to be some areas that are more open than others, but it's not an open world game. Thank God I can't handle another one of those. There's too fucking many and they're too big and too time consuming. So I'm actually really happy to hear that. But they've also said some negative stuff. Only 4 choices from Dragon Age Inquisition are going to carry over to this game. 4 out of 10 plus, 15 plus years of video games, 4 choices are going to carry over into this game. Unacceptable. Horrible choice. On top of that, there is no canonic end to this game. It's just a story. They have no through line here. The story is driven by characters. You got to have a canon ending. There has to be a canon ending. How do you make a sequel to a game that has no canon ending? It immediately just... Okay. But they've said one really good thing from the start. You will not have to play... This game is playable offline. You will not have to be online to play it at all. Now, for those of you who are really into tech, you'll know, okay, are they using Denuvo? And that's the question we've been asking for a very long time. For those of you who don't know what Denuvo is a software that is an anti-piracy software, which is admittedly a good thing, but also causes issues. In fact, players constantly accuse Denuvo of creating performance issues in games that it's activated on. What Denuvo does is it requires a constant internet connection so that it can consistently and constantly verify that you are a legal owner of the registered key to this game. So every tick or so, I don't know how many ticks an hour, I don't know how often, but the game basically has to be online so that it can verify that you own it, that it's your game. If a game is offline, as BioWare has said this game is, it will be completely offline. That means they shouldn't be able to use Denuvo. They shouldn't be using Denuvo. So the question for a long time has been, are you guys going to use Denuvo? Because the answer, if they say yes, means that they're lying. We can't play this game offline. If they say no, then they're not using anti-cheat or anti-piracy, excuse me, which would potentially open them up to a recent study shows 20% loss in profits when a game is released without any anti-piracy software or continues without anti-piracy. 20% loss. So they're accepting that because they have said they will not have Denuvo in this game. So all my pirates out there are cheering and drinking their rum right now. That's a good thing and a bad thing, right? It means you can play this game offline. You can put it on your Steam Deck. You could put it on your laptop. I don't know if you can put it on your Steam Deck. Don't quote me on that. You can put it on your laptop, go fucking camping and play the game. Go on a cruise and play the game, right? That's really good. But without Denuvo, they're going to potentially lose up to 20% of their profits, okay? And gamers are happy because, well, Denuvo causes performance issues. Or does it? So that's what we're actually going to talk about. I know it was a little bit of a preamble, but we're actually going to talk about Denuvo. The company actually recently put out a press release, a Q&A. Oh, camera blurred. What are you doing? Stop that. Stop that. My webcam just went all wonky. There it goes. It's refocused. Denuvo just did a recent Q&A on... I guess, where did they do this? I think it was on Reddit. Don't quote me on that. Denuvo did a Q&A where they answered a lot of questions about their software and said that Denuvo is not the cause of the performance decreases in games that it's attached to. It's actually bad choices, bad coding, and bad optimization from the developers themselves. Some people are buying this, some people aren't. You may believe it, you may not. I can say personally, hang on. Oh, I thought I needed to sneeze. I'm sorry. I can say personally, most games that I've played that have had Denuvo, I've never had an issue with. Now, I realize I'm the minority, and that's just my experience. I've never really had an issue, never had performance issues with games with Denuvo, never noticed anything that would be a performance issue. Well, they do this Q&A, and they're surprisingly open about things. So here's a snippet from it. A little bit of a quote says, here's the question for you. Quote, what about the performance comparisons between the protected version of the patched build without protect and the patched build without protection? And the response is, well, this is like comparing apples to Unoptimized apples. Take Star Wars Jedi Survivor as an example. Once they patched out the protection, they also added a handful of performance tweaks so that even the prior gen consoles could handle it. So of course it runs better after the patch. It's not just about removing protection, it's about devs walking an extra mile and making everything run smoother. Contrasting the original to the patched version is like comparing a rough draft to a final polished piece. Obviously the latter will shine. That's fairly, that's a fair point. If they did make patches after removing Denuvo, of course the game's going to run better after removing Denuvo. That makes sense. Goes on to question, what happened to Tekken 7 in 2018? Historically poorly optimized while it was on Denuvo. Awful frame drops, all kinds of issues. Tekken 7 experienced an issue where the wrong source code part was selected for protection. Specifically, it was triggered during specific moves by certain characters, leading to in-game stuttering. Normally, issues like this are caught by the game developers or publishers during the QA process and can be resolved by simply excluding the affected code part from the protection system. So, what he's saying is certain bits of code were triggering the communication to say, hey, Denuvo, you there? Here's my code. And Denuvo going, oh, okay, causing the game to stutter. That definitely sounds like it's a developer issue, not a software issue from Denuvo. Is it true? We've only got this one guy saying it. This is literally the owner of the company. It's his job to make this software enticing to developers and publishers. So take everything he says with a grain of salt. It doesn't necessarily mean he's lying. It also means we can't fully believe him. We have no evidence, right? He's presented something without evidence. It can be dismissed without evidence. What happened to Resident Evil Village in 2021? Resident Evil Village included additional protection measures that were unrelated to Denuvo anti-tamper, which caused a performance impact once the game was cracked. This protection was removed, which led to a faster execution time. So not only did they use Denuvo, supposedly, which assumedly this should be very verifiable information here, not only did they use Denuvo, the devs, Capcom, decided to use additional measures that apparently conflicted with Denuvo or potentially other parts of the game. So once again, Denuvo is putting it on the devs. Is that actually the case? Is it really the devs' fault? I guess it's up to your own judgment. We have no evidence one way or the other as to really who's at fault here. So Denuvo claims it's not them. Their software doesn't do this. It doesn't cause latency issues. It doesn't cause frame stuttering. It doesn't overclock your CPU and fry your CPU. These are the claims they're making. They're presenting them without evidence other than what they're saying, right? And again, personally, I have never experienced an issue running any game that I have played that I have known had Denuvo. I've never had an issue. But I guess we'll keep track going forward, right? Because if it is a dev thing, other games that use it, other studios that launch games with Denuvo, somebody's got to get it right. So if it's not Denuvo, then at some point we should in history know and see a game launch with Denuvo that is completely playable without any kind of issue. And I don't think that's ever going to happen because no games launch anymore without issues. They just don't. It doesn't happen. But there you go. That's where we're at with that. Dragon Age confirmed not having Denuvo. I guess they're going to take a hit in profits because you better believe this game's going to be cracked quick and pirates are going to be swarming all over it. So it was a choice. I don't know if it was the right choice. I will say I will never forgive BioWare for pulling people off of fixing Anthem for this. What they've delivered, I am positive, will not be as good as what Anthem could have been. So, BioWare, you will never have my forgiveness for that choice. Devs, not the devs. You guys are just the boots on the ground. I get it. But the people behind the scenes making the calls at BioWare, you have let a lot of people down. And personally, I think y'all should be fired. That's just me. You're the money-making guys, so you probably won't be. Let's move on. we're going to talk about some quickfire news. And honestly, this is going to be kind of a short episode. Solo episode. That's kind of how these go. We're just over, a little over 40, right around 40 minutes into this. So I'm doing okay. Quickfire news. Let's start it off the top with a game I'm very happy finally got a release date for. Spider-Man 2 is getting a PC release date of January 30th. 2025. We will see the game very soon on PC. It's coming from Nyx, the same studio that ports all of PlayStation's games. Hopefully this one will be good. They seem to be hit or miss. So there you go. January 25th for my fellow PC Master Race people. Yes, I saved myself that time. Fellow PC Master Race people that have been waiting for the sequel to that game. Set your calendars, 30th of January. Also, Behemoth, a very highly anticipated VR game that looks like Might and Magic Dark Messiah mixed with, I guess, you could say Shadow of the Colossus, was delayed and is now coming out on PC VR, PSVR 2, and the MetaQuest on December 5th. So the game looks really cool. I'm personally super stoked for it. I love any VR game that actually is a game and isn't just like a shooting gallery or something like that. Like, I feel like VR has a lot of potential and we aren't getting there, and I'm not quite sure why. So games like this need your support so that they can become what VR gaming is. If you haven't looked into Behemoth and you have a VR system, I highly recommend it. Again, it's coming to PlayStation, it's coming to PC, it's coming to the standalone Meta. Just to be clear, Meta 2, Quest 2, Quest 3, Quest 3S, and I believe Pro. So I think every current generation of the Quest is getting it to different levels of detail, right? Beyond that, we have some news about Claire Obscura, Expedition 33. If you guys missed this game, announced at, I think it was the Summer Games Show. I believe it was there that was announced. It might have been last year. It's been a wild ride this year. I can't believe it's already almost over. This game looks dope as fuck. If you like turn-based RPGs with deep story that are incredible. Beyond that, the cast for this game is off the rails. It's insane. So let me just cue this up for you guys. Charlie Cox, Daredevil, from the Daredevil TV show, is in this game. Jennifer English, the voice of Shadowheart, is in this game. Ben Starr, the voice of Clive from Final Fantasy XVI, is in this game. And joining them, well, not joining them now, but announced to have been joining them, is a legendary motion capped actor, which, if you don't know this man, I'm not surprised. I didn't know him until I looked into him too. Andy Serkis. If you don't know who Andy Serkis is, I don't blame you. He is incredibly well known in the motion capture world, though. However, he has done motion capture for Heavenly Sword, which was a phenomenal God of War-like game on the PS3 that was slept on by a lot of people. Incredible title. If you have a PS3 and you haven't played Heavenly Sword, definitely recommend checking it out. He also did motion cap for Enslaved Journey to the West, which was the same company that did Heavenly Sword. Fantastic, but that's just his early game stuff. He's also the motion caption actor for Golem from The Lord of the Rings, as well as Caesar from the Planet of the Apes movies, the new ones. So he has truly done a lot in the motion cap world, and the fact that they're bringing him onto this game, and this game isn't somehow $100,000 to pay for all of these incredible actors, I don't get it. I don't understand how this company's turning a profit on this game, but Claire Obscura looks fucking great. The story alone has grabbed me. I'm not super huge on turn-based combat this day and age, but it's not a turnoff. The story for this game alone looks interesting enough, and then the voice acting cast that they've got behind this is incredible. I have no doubt that this game will be phenomenal. It's going to be cool. Currently, I don't think we have an official release date for Clair Obscur. Let me double check that statement. I don't think they've set an official date. Clair Obscur. Nope, just TBA. They have not announced any release date or time, but go check out the trailer. I'll have the Steam page linked on our show notes. You can find all of our links to pretty much everything we talk about there every single episode. That's on YouTube and in the audio version for those who are listening audio. There is show notes in the description section, has links and explanation on everything we've kind of talked about tonight. Last thing I have over here for the free side before I wrap up and head over to Patreon. Next week, there will not be an episode. I am going on a cruise, which is kind of why I alluded to that with my wife and daughter for Halloween as kind of a late birthday present to both of them. So I will be gone for 8 days from Wednesday to Wednesday. So I'll be out of town. If Tim can do a solo show, that is entirely up to him. If he does, it likely won't be on this channel because he doesn't have the login information for the. He does, but it has to send an email. There's secondary authentication, so if he does do a stream, it will be on his private stream. I don't have that information off the top of my head, but if you go to linktree.com/CoinDropPod, CoinDrop Vets, all of our links are there, including his personal Twitch. I know that's a lot of extra steps. The other option is join the Discord. He will let people know there if he's doing it. There you go. Again, that link can be found at CoinDrop Vets as well. The link tree, or in our Discord, or in any of our descriptions, anywhere you can find it. I promise. It's not hard if you look a little bit. And so with that, co-host list down, I guess it's on me. Tell your mom I said hi.